I've already prepared those and uploaded those to both Azure Key Vault and to my local certificate store. Then I need to have a template to deploy and track progress. Finally, we can validate whether the resources were created successfully, and we can have a look at the Service Fabric Explorer to see if the cluster was created successfully. To deploy my cluster, I'm going to use PowerShell. I have a template and a parameters file. The parameters file contains variables I can specify that will be different for every cluster. For instance, it has the cluster name, the cluster location, the administrator password, its public DNS name, etc. You can also see the certificate values pointing to certificates I uploaded to Azure Key Vault earlier. The template file contains all the resources that must be created to make my cluster. If I now provide the proper arguments, I can start the deployment of my cluster. The script needs to have some variables defined before it can create my cluster. For instance, it requires the subscription ID, the resource group name and location, and a deployment name. If I run this deployment, I first need to authenticate myself as a valid Azure user. You can see that the template is first being validated before it will be executed. The template appears to be valid and it's now creating my resources. Note that this could take some time. If I now go to the Azure portal and navigate to the resource group I just created, I can see that my cluster is already present. The deployment has succeeded. I have a 3-node cluster running on Linux. I can click on the Explorer button to go to the Service Fabric Explorer, or I can simply copy its URL and paste that in my browser. The browser then challenges me to select the certificate I used to create the cluster, so I can authenticate myself as the cluster administrator. If I select the proper certificate there, and ignore the warnings that were generated because I use a self-signed certificate here, you can see that I have access to my Service Fabric Explorer. You can see that this is a 3-node cluster that does not have any applications running yet. We have now deployed a Service Fabric cluster running Linux to Azure by using an ARM template. We are now ready to start running applications on it.